Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, "You're too arrogant. And if you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power."
Hotep, which in the language of ancient Egypt means we come with justice in peace. Welcome to Freedom Now, a Saturday Pan-Africanist and Internationalist World Affairs program. Freedom Now is committed to the principle of the rights of all peoples and nations to self-determination. We thank you deeply for your contribution to KPFK, which permits programs like Freedom Now to stay on the air. In this era of corporate acquisition and co-optation of all dissident media, we provide the microphone, challenging their corporate and racist point of view. So stay tuned for our agenda here at Freedom Now.
Habari Gani. This is Sister Thage with Freedom Now's agenda for this Black History Month Saturday, February 7th, 2026. Another year, as always, where every day is Black History Day. We commence with our ancestor, Didan Kamati, in the African Drumbeat historical calendar. In this hour, we're honored to have back with us our brother Oduduwa Olutanji, the Executive Director of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival, here to discuss PAF Soul 2026, which is this year's theme. As the Arts Festival begins today and the Film Festival starts on February 16th, we're excited to discuss the upcoming films, especially for highlighting films for our Freedom Now listeners. And later in the hour, prolific author, radical historian, professor of African American Studies at the University of Houston, and Freedom Now co-producer, Dr. Gerald Horne interviews Dr. David Evans, professor of history and intercultural studies and associate dean at Eastern Mennonite Seminary. Dr. Evans is the author of Damned Whiteness, How White Christian Allies Failed the Black Freedom Movement. Our music clip mix includes MLK, Zap Mama, Wu-Tang Clan, Melba Liston, John Coltrane, Isfahan, Miles Davis, Clifford Brown, and more. So sit back, phone a friend, and as always we stand ready for revolution.
History is best qualified to reward all research. And when you see that you got problems, all you have to do is examine the historic method used all over the world by others who had problems similar to yours. And once you see how they got theirs straight, then you know how you can get yours straight.
So we bring you the African Drumbeat historical calendar here at KPFK's Freedom Now, where every day, every week, every month we cover African history. February 2nd, 1848, the first draft of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ceded Mexican land to the United States. Subsequently, every provision of the agreement between defeated Mexico and the United States was violated by the United States. February 3rd, 1969, Eduardo Mondlane, founder president of Frelimo, Front for the Liberation of Mozambique, was assassinated. Frelimo was a vanguard movement in the decolonization struggle against Portuguese colonialism in Mozambique. February 3rd, 1930, the Vietnamese Communist Party was founded by Ho Chi Minh and the Revolutionary Intelligentsia of Vietnam to liberate Vietnam from French and later U.S. colonial forces. The Vietnamese Communist Party continues today to provide a higher quality of life under socialism than under French and U.S. colonial rules in critical areas of education, childcare, health, food, housing, and culture. February 3rd, 1810, the black hero of Argentina dies. Antonio Ruiz was a national hero of Buenos Aires, Argentina. He died in the struggle to liberate his country from colonialism. February 3rd, 1903, Jack Johnson becomes the first Negro heavyweight champion in the world. February 3rd, 1920, the Negro Baseball League is founded. February 4th, 1969, MPLA, Movement for the Liberation of Angola, begins armed struggle against the Portuguese colonial forces in Angola, giving rise to the overthrow not only of Portuguese colonialism in Angola, but the overthrow of the military dictatorship and the rise of a socialist government in Portugal. February 5th, 1967, the Arusha Declaration is ratified, which clarifies the ideology of Tanzania as socialism. February 5th, 1915, Janu Gul, a South African woman freedom fighter, organizes against the Colored Affairs Department in racist South Africa. She was a co-founder of the All-African Convention in 1935. She further organized youth resistance groups throughout the South Africa in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and was forced into exile in 1963. February 6, 1820. Africans in America emigrate back to Sierra Leone from New York to escape the ravages of slavery. February 6, 1961. The jail-in movement starts in Rock Hill, South Carolina, when students refuse to pay fines and requested jail sentences. SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, urges Southwide Jail No Bail campaign. February 6, 1945. Bob Marley, the reggae superstar, who during the period of depoliticalization of music, with the corporate-created disco craze, brought reggae to the masses of humanity as a musical ideological weapon, whose lyrical content affirmed African history, the decolonization movements, black pride, love, and unity among many themes. February 7th, 1926. Negro History Week is originated by Carter G. Woodson and observed for the first time. In 1976, it becomes Black History Month. This has been Brother Dinan Kamati with the African Drumbeat Historical Calendar.
This is Sister Thage with Freedom Now here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, where liberation is not a theory, it's a practice. And so today we're talking about culture as a weapon, joy as resistance, and building the future when daring to dream. And joining us back here on Freedom Now is our brother Oduduwa Olutanji, the executive director of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. Welcome back to Freedom Now, brother Oduduwa.
Yes, thank you, Tej. I love Freedom Now. That's what we need.
Hey, Freedom Now.
Mm-hmm.
And so another year with the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. And we wanted to first start for our new listeners to give a little bit of background on the history of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. So can you talk to our listeners about that?
Yeah, definitely. So Pan-African Film Festival, Pan-African Film and Arts Festival was started in 1992. And it was started as a way to platform Black art and to give new voices opportunities. And it was started by Ayuko Babu, who's an international advocate and community activist and lawyer, and also Danny Glover, who is the famous actor Danny Glover, and then Janae Dubois, who you may know as Walona on Good Times. That was her big role. And they came together and they started this wonderful institution.
Wow. And here we are, 34 years later, 2026.
Yes.
And with the theme Path Soul. And can you tell us more about the theme?
Well, what we kind of wanted to do was something a little classic, something a little nostalgic but contemporary. There's a lot of drama today. There's a lot of issues, and there's just a lot of culture wars and different things like that. And we found that what we really wanted to do was connect for our audience and give them what feels good and what they need. And, what better than soul? So here we are.
Here we are, Path Soul 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have to talk about some of the logistics first about when is the film festival happening, when is the art fest happening, just so our listeners can start to write it down on their schedule. I know something starts today, Saturday the 7th.
Yes, that's the art show, which is going to be going on at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. So that's going to be going on from the 17th, from the 7th through the 16th. And that is basically, it's going to be 75 brand new artists, fine artists and craftspeople from all over the world in Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza, giving you what they got, which is fine art, great wares, great fashion. I mean, stuff from all around the world. We have, I don't know if you, interestingly enough, if you've seen Speed, I Show Speed, his Africa tour. So when he was in Nigeria, he went to the Nikkei Gallery, which is like one of the famous national galleries in Nigeria. So we have some of the artists from there coming over here. And yeah, we just have some of the most beautiful art you've ever seen.
Wow, we're looking forward to that. So that starts today, February 7th. And for our listening audience who wants to follow along also with the films that we'll be discussing here on Freedom Now, the website is www.paff.org. And the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival is the largest Black History Month event in LA County. So
yes, it is.
Yes.
in our films, our film portion of the festival starts from February 16th through the 22nd. That is going to be at the Culver Theater in Culver City, and also at the Cinemark at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza as well. So we're going to have two locations. Check the schedule to see which film is showing at which location. And then on the 14th, Valentine's Day, we have our Spoken Word Fest comedy show. Not the comedy show, our Spoken Word Fest, which is put on by Diverse Verses LA, which some of you may know, some people from Deaf Poets, and our headliner for that is the renowned poet Georgia Mee. So she's going to be there. And then also it's hosted by Paul Mabon, who you may know from the Progressive commercials, who is a amazing poet, which you might not know.
Good to know.
Yes. And then our comedy show, which is what I wanted to also touch, is going to be on the 11th at the Miracle Theater in Inglewood. And we have a great lineup of comedians. It's going to be headlined by the legendary Tommy Davidson. So, Tommy Davidson from In Living Color and all of these television shows and stuff like that. We brought him out, and he's going to do some brand new comedy for you.
Right on. February 11th, you said?
Yes, February 11th. So the full festival runs from the 7th through the 22nd with our various events and various parties and functions and all sorts of things. And we are going to just go all out for y'all. If you go to our website, www.paff.org, we're going to have the full screening guide, and tickets are on sale, and it's going to be amazing.
Well, we're looking forward to it. And as we get ready to kind of jump into some of the films, we wanted to start. Can you kind of give us a little sneak peek about opening night?
Yes, I can. The opening night film is going to be a very special secret film from RZA of Wu-Tang Clan. It's a brand new film that he's made that it's only been shown once. So he brought it to Pan-African Film Festival because this is the audience that he wants to see it. This is the community, and we can't say much about it, but it is going to happen on February 17th at the Directors Guild, and it is the secret film from the Wu-Tang Clan, from RZA.
Ooh, we're looking forward to that one.
Yes.
And the mystery behind it.
Right.
Right on to the creative arts. And so more for our Freedom Now listening audience, as we start to look at more of the films, can you highlight some of the films that you would recommend for our listeners as well?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one film that we are going to be showing that I'm going to give you guys some of the great documentaries that we have. The first one that I want to talk about is When the Sky Turns Orange, which is a brand new documentary from Issa Rae and Color Creative about the Eaton fires. So we are going to be showing that on Tuesday of the coming week, which I believe is the 10th. And then we're going to be showing it to the Student Fest and also at various times throughout the festival. So it goes in depth with a lot of the rebuilding and the families that were affected by the Eaton fires. Another great documentary that we have is called Brothers in Blood, Black in Vietnam, which it basically traces some of the stories from the Black Americans who fought in the wars, how it was when they came back home, and in the civil rights movement, the resistance that they formed, and some of the troubles that they had, the discrimination within the military and outside the military, and a lot of the physical and emotional consequences of going to war. So I think that that's going to be a good one. And also in that film, it has a lot of never before seen footage from the Vietnam War. So you're getting a lot of like really new stuff, which has not been shown. And so also we have Heart of Compton, which is it's about the equestrian and Western tradition with the Compton Cowboys and Compton in general. And you know, it centers on Zoe Brogdon, who is currently a UCLA student, but she's also one of the top Black equestrians in the entire country. And so it talks about her and her journey and what it means to be a Black cowboy, a Black equestrian, and dealing with that lifestyle. We have Cirillo, The Untold Legacy, which is the life of Cirillo McSween, who was a pioneering entrepreneur and civil rights activist. He was born in Panama, and he dealt with Jim Crow, and he ended up being an insurance executive and McDonald's franchisee, and also a trusted ally of Dr. King and of Reverend Jesse Jackson. So that is narrated by the Grammy Award-winning singer and actress Ann Nesby, and it also has some archival footage and never before seen civil rights footage. So yeah, we have a lot. I can keep going. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, I want you to keep going.
You want me to keep going?
Tell us
Okay.
more.
Yes. We have Black Aquatic, Volume 1, The Search for Good Trouble, which is basically about the U.S. sailing director and racer, Marie Rogers, and talks about her 9-day challenge in 2023 with the Trans-Pacific yacht race, where she skippered from California to Hawaii in a boat named Good Trouble. And we really want to show different aspects of the Black experience. So, that's something that you wouldn't think would be out there, but it is, and we're showing it to you. We have another sort of Black aquatic documentary called Moving Mountains, which is a documentary all about Black surfers in the Santa Monica and Malibu area, and how they connect to the craft and the sport of surfing. And it's absolutely it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's photographed beautiful. In terms of some of the narrative films that we have, let me think what I'm gonna drop on you, what I'm gonna say here. I think, I'm gonna drop this on Freedom Now. This is the Path Soul, but we might have something special for you from this new Michael movie. We might have that, so be on the lookout for that. Also, we have, it's so many films, so I just implore you to go to the screening guide and check them all out, because I can go on and on and on all day about the wonderful films at Path. I know we have amazing shorts. We have some amazing shorts this year. If you might or might know, the festival is an Academy qualifier for shorts. So we had film nominated, I believe, in 2024 called The Last Ranger. It didn't end up winning, but so this year, just all of the shorts. That's all I have to say is, like, if you come to PAF and you see a short film, you're gonna see probably one of the best short films you ever seen in your life. So just all of our short blocks are really amazing. We have man, I can just keep going on and going on.
I just want to remind our listening audience that we are speaking with our brother Oduduwa Olutanji. He's the executive director of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. And I also did want to mention, if you can talk about the documentary for our listeners, The Price of Resistance, Salahuddin, an American agitator.
Yes, definitely. So, as you know, Salahuddin, and it's a documentary that spans the 60s and the 70s, and it really goes into the Black Liberation Movement and his targeting by the FBI COINTEL. And we have firsthand testimony, exclusive interviews. We have some of the retired FBI agents in the documentary who went after him. I mean, this is really, this is very important, especially considering what's going on now, which, you know, we'll probably learn about in 20 and 30 years. Maybe they started COINTELPRO again. But, you know, The Price of Resistance lays down the story of Salahuddin, and like I said, it really spans a 20-year period of resistance.
Right on. Well, we're really looking forward to the film festival, the art festival, the comedy night, and we just need to highlight some of the panels, because this is an entire 15 days of Pan-African history and movement building. So can you also talk about some of the panels?
Yes, but before I get to that, I have a couple more films that I think are going to be really interesting. So we have Iyanu, The War of Two Princes, which is an animated film. It is the top animated series from Nigeria, and it is actually on Cartoon Network as well. So that's something that, you know, if people like animation and different things like that they can come see. We also have the comedian Godfrey. He's premiering his new special with us. It's called Rebel with a Cause. So, you know, it has some important comedy in there and laughs for conscious people. So I think that's something that we really wanted to highlight, because, you know, everyone always thinks that the conscious community is so uptight, or that we're always, you know, like trying to, you know, knock down the police and stuff like that. But, you know, we also have nuance. And right. I think that is a very good example of that, because Godfrey is a conscious brother who gets on YouTube, gets out in the street, and really talks about, you know, what's going on. So, yeah, we have one more thing, which is, you know, Freedom Now. We have the 20th anniversary of the movie Fat Girls. Okay. Which is, you know, Jimmy Jean Louis and Monique, and it's a African director called Neges Lecky, and so we're blessed to have that, because I really think that we have to celebrate our different nuances that we have in Pan-Africanism in our different communities. And then lastly, one of the shorts that I wanted to highlight was it's called Spilled Milk, which is a horror thriller short that is done by Monkey Paw Productions. So it's Jordan Peele's new like horror short, and it's people haven't seen it yet, and it's at PAF, so come see it.
Right on.
Yes, and so we were talking about panels, though. We're
moving all around because there's so much in these 15 days, and we're at the countdown, so we're excited about it. So tell us about the panels.
So the panels, we have a lot of informative panels. We try to program panels that help people's careers. So we have a panel on streaming where we're going to have a lot of the executives from the streaming services, from the Netflix, Amazon, Tubi, different things like that, where they're going to talk about the business in terms of like how it's changed, what to do as a filmmaker, how to interact with the streamers, and just basically giving us what the lay of the land is. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a showrunners panel, which is going to be all about Black showrunners in Hollywood. And, if you don't know, showrunners are the people basically who run the show. They put together the whole show. They're like the producers. So like you always hear like Ryan Murphy and like these type of people. And so it's like Black showrunners and really kind of teaching and letting people know what goes into that career. Of course, we have Black editors. I mean, we have over 20 panels that I think are going to be going on. So, our panels really are the part of the meat of the festival in terms of coming and learning about the industry. So I invite everyone to come and check them out.
Right on. Definitely come join us at this hub for cultural celebration, empowering Black creatives. And for more information, again, you can go to www.paff, that's PAFF.org. And we want to thank you, Brother Oduduwa Olutanji, for joining us here today on Freedom Now. And we're looking forward to seeing you at the festival. Come join us today at the Art Fest, February 7th. And any closing words, Brother Oduduwa?
Yes, I have some very, very heartfelt closing words. And that is just that we all know what's going on in the country right now. We all know what's going on in the world right now. And the powers that be, the ruling class, they have decided to be intent on destroying our culture, destroying our institutions, destroying our history. And it's been felt pretty much in every corner of American life. And it's certainly been felt at Pan-African Film Festival. So I just want to put out that this is a very important year because as we exist in capitalism, and we exist in capitalism that is evolving into a fascism, the vote we have when the elections aren't going on is with our dollars, is with our attention, is with our presence. And I can tell you from being the executive director of PATH that they're trying to stop it. They're trying to stop PATH. They're trying to stop Black arts. They're trying to put it in the back of the closet away from people, and they're trying to center Kid Rock. Let's keep it real. And so we need our community to come out and to take part. And whether you're seeing a comedy, whether you're seeing a documentary, whether you're attending a panel, a party, or anything, it's very important because our existence is a political statement. And and now it's very important for us to fight back against all of these forces which they don't want us to prosper. They want us to wither. They want us to die. They want us to be silent. They want us to stick our heads in the sand, and they want us to go away. And they want all of the resources and all of the good things in the world for themselves and for their family and for lobbyists and for their people. And we can't let that stand. We just can't let that stand. PATH is for everyone. And one of the things that I think is really important is that PATH as an organization rooted in resistance, we understand the importance of media in this whole thing. If I can kind of go off on a diatribe a little more, excuse me, but we see the way that they have ruined independent media. And we almost exist in a time where we have state-sanctioned media. I mean, if you watch things like Fox News, they're echoing talking points coming straight from, the fascists at the top. And so we have to champion independent media. We have to champion our own voices. And that's what I'm here to do. That's what PATH is here to do. If you see me at PATH, talk to me. I'll talk back to you. If you have a film out there that you want to make it. If you have a protest you want to go to it. Now is the time. So that's my little bit.
Well, thank you so much for the Oduduwa Olutanji for your wisdom and all the work that you do as Executive Director of PATH, and for joining us today on Freedom Now.
Thank you. You too.
This is Sister Flora, and you are listening to Freedom Now at KPFK 90.7 FM in occupied Mexico, including Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM in San Diego, and streaming live on the web at kpfk.org. Today's program, as well as 10 prior editions, can be reheard at kpfk.org/audio archive, and scroll down to Freedom Now. For a truly alternative international perspective on world affairs, check out RTTV Russia, CCTV China, and online at Presna, Latina Cuba Telesur Venezuela, News 24 South Africa, and Press TV Iran.
This typewriter has been through wars and through weather and through power outings, and it was with me on death row. And it's an old beat-up Swintech, so I've had it for like 25 years. It has mothered some of my best work, and I used it to write the first drafts of several of my books. But you ever hear of the saying, from time X takes a licking and keeps on ticking? You're probably not old enough to remember that. But guess what? This typewriter, an old beat-up Swintech, has taken it. It's died at least 3 times and come back to life. It's been dropped, kicked around, held in storage for years while I was in Hull. And when it was a flood here in Illinois, it took the brunt of that. When there was a power outing while I was on death row, it scrambled the onboard computer, and whenever I tried to type, nonsense words would come out. And I tried to buy a new one at least twice. I would fill out the cash slip for commissary, and something told me to, before I turned in the slip, to just check the typewriter. And it came back to life several times. Its power cord was fractured, and so the power would be intermittent. I learned how to twist the cord and hold it a certain way and put the typewriter on my knees and just go to work. So it has taken many lickings and kept on coming back. And finally, like all things in nature and in machines, I guess, it died. So it did a lot of work. It has seen better days, but it did a lot of fantastic work under great pressure and struggle. So, at this late date, an RIP for a great typewriter. Thank you. Swintech 1, signing off. With love, not fear, this is Mumia Abu Jamal.
These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio.
We will now continue with historian Professor Dr. Gerald Horne.
For KPFK Radio, this is Gerald Horne, and with me on the line is David F. Evans, professor of history and intercultural studies and associate dean at Eastern Mennonite Seminary in Virginia, and author of the book Damned Whiteness: How White Christian Allies Failed the Black Freedom Movement. Thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK Los Angeles, David F. Evans.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And it's great to have you. So why did you produce this book?
Well, this book really rose out of my experience in activism and especially in teaching in predominantly white contexts. Folks who are interested in peace building and anti-racism often were unaware of white allies who also were opposed to structures of racism. And so I thought initially what I needed to do as a historian was to write a book about white abolitionists, white civil rights workers, to give my students and the folks who would show up in my workshops some models that they could look to and maybe be inspired by. And I had ran across a story of Dorothy Day in my graduate school work where I worked in a historical archive. And I ran across some papers, letters between Dorothy Day and Ralph Templin. And in one of those correspondence, I learned that Dorothy Day had spent some time at a place called Koinonia Farm in Americus, Georgia, where Clarence Jordan was leading what he called an interracial experiment. And a number of white folks, including Dorothy Day, were very excited about this thing. And so she went down there. She heard stories about the farm being attacked. She decided to stand up and to kind of keep watch and pray over the farm in defense of the farm. And she was shot at. And so I thought this would be a great way to start out a story about white allies who are willing to put their lives on the line to defend Black people in the South. But there was a problem. The more I dug into the stories of Dorothy Day, Clarence Jordan, the Fellowship of Reconciliation, there were some Catholic interracial committees, largely made up of comprised of white people, I found that there was an absence, a noticeable absence of the very people they claimed to be fighting for, Black folks. And that became the heart of this book, trying to answer the question, if these people, Dorothy Day, the founder of the Catholic worker movement, Clarence Jordan, the founder of Koinonia Farm, interracialism, and Ralph Templin, a man who eventually becomes the first white person ordained in an all-Black church context, if they were such great anti-racists, why did they have so few Black relationships, and especially relationships with Black movements? And so I wrote the book to answer that question.
So why did they have so few relationships, as you just put it?
Yeah, well, what was interesting to me was to find eventually that the movements that they created, white folks created movements that were outside of the context of Black communities. Literally in the 1940s and the 50s, white folks got caught up in these back to the land movement, farming, and what one person called agronomic experiments, and they moved out into rural spaces in the North and less frequently in the South. This has happened at the same time as maybe we might call a second or third wave of the Great Migration, where Black folks are moving into cities like Washington, D.C., where by 1957, for instance, Washington, D.C. becomes a majority Black city. Well, while that's happening, these white folks are moving to other spaces. So geographically, Black and white folks are moving in different directions. However, they're using similar language to denounce Jim Crowism, the lack of integration after the Supreme Court Brown versus Board of Education decision. And so it sounds like they are on the same side, moving in the same direction. But the argument of the book is that these movements, the white ally movement and the Black freedom movement, are moving in parallel with one another in the same direction, but rarely meeting one another, and they have different goals. White allies tend to emphasize fellowship and freedom, or fellowship and friendship, whereas the Black freedom fighters are emphasizing freedom. And of course, they're disagreeing sometimes and having some conversations about what freedom actually means and how they get there. But one movement is moving towards friendship and neglecting to address structures and systems, or misunderstanding the way that dominant systems of power are affected by anti-Blackness. And Black freedom fighters seem to have a better understanding of this. And so they are moving towards freedom, or the ability and right to determine their own destiny.
Now, you mentioned Dorothy Day. Could you refresh our recollection about her life, history, and trajectory?
Yeah, I should say I really love these folks. They're, these white folks are, some of the best of the progressives. This is actually what was really interesting about the book. And Dorothy Day in particular is this kind of no nonsense person who was kind of raised as maybe not raised, but in college became a socialist in the kind of style of Eugene Debs, if we're familiar with Eugene Debs. And so, she has this anti-capitalist thing going on. And in her 20s, in the 1920s, she becomes a Catholic. She converts. And she starts to kind of see the Catholic social principles as similar to what she learned with her socialist friends in New York at Greenwich Village. But she sees a problem, at least from her perspective, that socialism is not compatible with Christianity. So she believes that Catholicism is the place where all of these folks that are being exploited and disenfranchised by capitalism need to go. They need to join the Catholic Church. So she starts the Catholic worker movement, which includes the houses of hospitality, where people who are struggling to eat and have places to live can find shelter and food. And she also founds the Catholic Worker, a newspaper that is in direct opposition to the Daily Worker, which is a communist paper. And she wants her paper to be the alternative, convincing Black folks and others that the Communist Party is not the only one who cares about their plight, that the Catholics do as well.
So I'm trying to figure out why she would convert. How old was she when she converted to Catholicism, for example?
I don't know exactly what age she was, but it was in her later years after college. She had been in some relationships, and so she was a youngish adult.
Was there any startling event in her life that led her to convert to Catholicism, for example? Did she meet somebody who helped her convert?
She has quite a number of reflections in her autobiographies about her conversion to Catholicism, and I'm not an expert in like her own reflections around that. What I'm aware of is that she did, and that she was convinced of the reality of God, and that she was a bit of a mystical figure herself. And so what the Catholic Church offered in terms of this kind of mystical experience, and this coupled with a social consciousness, was something that was very attractive to her. She goes through a period of time in her life where she is in a relationship with a man that doesn't work out well. And in the midst of all of this, it's actually her conversion to Catholicism that ultimately breaks them up, because he is not interested in any kind of theism. And this is very much an interest of hers, and she ends up choosing Catholicism over her relationship.
What about Ralph Templin? Does he have a trajectory akin to Dorothy Day, or is it different?
So Ralph Templin is quite different than Dorothy Day. He is a Methodist who starts out as a missionary. So he would be almost like an opposite trajectory of Dorothy Day, where he starts out with a very strong allegiance to church and even church planting. He goes to India under a mission movement by the Methodist Church, led by E. Stanley Jones, who was one of the great missionaries, the evangelicals of the 20th century. And when he goes to India in the 1930s, Ralph Templin learns that white missionary practice is quite racist, white supremacist. He starts to see that even as he gets there, not knowing much at all, that he gets put in charge of huge initiatives, leading people in conversations, leading schools, and he has really no experience. He's a true believer in the kind of the idea of the American dream, so much so that earlier in his life, he even volunteers to join the Americans in World War I. He's trained as a fighter pilot, but his group doesn't ever go because the war ends before they finish their training. But when he's in India, he is confronted with the idea that Christian missions is not everything that he thinks or he thought it was going to be, and neither is America. He's convinced that there is something in the white psyche and in their nations and their empires that is fundamentally flawed. And he calls it this disease of whiteness, actually damned whiteness, in a poem that he writes. And so he starts a trajectory moving away from church, like local church ministry and pastoring, and adopts this idea of Christian abolitionism, and starts to join these sometimes parachurch ministries, but first an organization called the School for Living, which has really nothing to do with church. But it's all about a critique of capitalism and the idea that people can, on their homesteads, learn how to live. He leaves that after a while, joins the Fellowship of Reconciliation, which is a pacifist Christian group. And his budding understanding of abolitionism, which he defines as being opposed to evil, no matter what, does not allow him to adopt a pure pacifism, because more than being pacifist or nonviolent even, he thinks it is important for people to be opposed to evil. And he finds that the Fellowship of Reconciliation and an organization they start outside of it, kind of a sub-organization called the Peacemakers, these folks seem to care more about being principled pacifists than they care about abolishing evil, and especially in the form of Jim Crow segregation. And so he watches as Black folks are marching in the streets, that they're engaging in rebellions, that they're fighting for their very lives, that the Fellowship of Reconciliation and the Peacemakers are more content to argue with one another about whether or not nonviolence at times, or direct action, or non-cooperation is coercive than they are with doing something to abolish these dominant structures of white supremacy.
And what about Clarence Jordan, as you pronounce it?
Yes. So Clarence Jordan is a New Testament, or was a New Testament scholar, who is probably most known for writing the Cotton Patch Gospels, which is a cultural translation of the New Testament. And what he does is he takes this, the New Testament, he tries to put it in Southern vernacular, particularly in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and tries to help us understand from his perspective, how the New Testament, how Jesus, how the disciples, and especially the letters of Paul would be understood if they were written in the 1960s. So this is when he's writing, in the 1960s. But before that, he starts a farm in 1942. He and a friend of his decide that they need to have a place where they can experiment with what it means to be the true church. And they do this outside of church buildings and want to do this in what they call a demonstration plot, where they are going to demonstrate to the South what it looks like for Christians to live in harmony together. And the way they decide that they need to do this is by having an interracial fellowship. Now, what's interesting about this interracial fellowship is that he says he founds it for two reasons. One is to train Negro preachers in religion, and two is to give a place for, to give a place for Black people in the South the education they need to do agriculture, like basically farming. So he starts this farm, and then after 1954, particularly 1955, he tries to get a couple of Black folks into the University of Georgia, which makes regional and national news. And that's when the problems start for the farm. White folks in the area start bombing the farm stands. They're shooting at houses. They're cutting fences and letting livestock out. And eventually, the community starts to boycott people from the farm and not sell them anything. And this makes Clarence Jordan something of a national hero for white allies who are opposed to Jim Crow segregation. They see him as someone who is standing up to the racists. And he kind of revels in this. And he goes around and speaking tours, and they're selling peanuts and pecans and things in this area to kind of raise money for the farm. But he likes to tell all these stories about how he confronted the Klan and how they're really standing up to these racists and teaching them a lesson. And then it's out of these experiences that he's preaching, and he starts to write this Cotton Patch Gospel. And he becomes a hero in some ways of what today we would call evangelicals who are interested in racial reconciliation. He's also known as the person who is a spiritual godfather to the Habitat for Humanities movement, the Habitat housing movement for people who are struggling economically.
Mm-hmm. Finally, David F. Evans, author of the book Damned Whiteness, How White Christian Allies Failed the Black Freedom Movement. Were there any Christian denominations that were better or worse than others with regard to combating Jim Crow?
This is a really difficult question in some ways. I mean, I think I can answer it very clearly that yes, if we're talking about Black denominations. But if we're talking about white denominations, I think that is a very difficult question to answer. I think historically we could talk about folks like Quakers who have a history of fighting against enslavement and things like that. But oftentimes what we find throughout these histories is that most denominations have a history of actually dividing over either a commitment to furthering things like enslavement or upholding Jim Crow segregation. So that in the 20th century, after many denominations, Methodists, Presbyterians have split, the Catholics haven't split, they kind of are outside of this like Protestant hegemonic structure. They themselves are experiencing different forms of racism because of large numbers of immigrants that are part of their communities. We should also say that white Catholics are using racial boundaries to keep out what some folks would call racial ethnics as well, Eastern and Southern Europeans. But most Protestant denominations have split over issues of racism, particularly slavery, by the time we get to the 20th century. And what we find is when they start to come together, they're making agreements with one another about upholding the idea that Black and white folks should not worship together. And so we end up with Black churches and white churches and so on within these denominations. I'm a United Methodist. This is actually the history of the Methodist Episcopal Church, in particular, the one from which Ralph Templin comes. And they actually create a separate jurisdiction for Black preachers and Black congregation members, while they also talk about unifying the church and the idea that they are not a racist church. We continue to see within Christian denominations, whether they are Protestant or Catholic, debates over the place and role of people who are not white, the kind of power that we see them hold, the positions that they have. And this is why, in many ways, this question about racial reconciliation in churches and other people who are showing up around the country to talk about racial harmony and racial justice in churches continues, because most mainline denominations have a very troubled history of anti-Blackness, and even in their progressive movements, even in their liberalism, seem to not understand that the structures that they have inherited are, and the policies that they have, and the processes that they undertake are often mired in all kinds of anti-Blackness. And so when they invite people, welcome people, include people in their congregations to be members, or maybe to sing in the choir, or they have an after-school program or vacation Bible school for kids, they do not understand that they have not adequately addressed the structures that have served to keep Black people out of these places, so that when Black folks and others, brown folks too, come into these spaces, they're amongst the first to recognize that something's not quite right here. That when I speak up, when I show my true self to this place, these folks want to control me, or I don't feel welcome, or I don't feel like this place is one that's for me. I'm forced to assimilate to white norms, or my voice and leadership is tokenized, so they want my face, but they don't actually want my opinion or ideas.
Well, sir, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK, Los Angeles.
Thanks, Dr. Horne. It was great to be here with you.
And in closing, we'd like to thank our guests, Oduduwa Olutanji. Thank you, Dr. David Evans. Thank you to our producers, Dr. Gerald Horne, Sister Flora, Brother Brandon. Thank you, Anthony Ballas, and all those who made today's program possible. Shout out to our board op, Sly. And stay tuned for our brother Dino with The Signal coming up next. And we look forward to seeing everybody at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. Again, you can go to www.paff.org and see the film guide and the schedule. And we look forward to seeing you out there. Signing off for Freedom Now, this is Sister Thage. And until next week, as always, we stand ready for revolution.
We state these facts only to let you know that those of us who are revolutionary, Pan-Africanists, is not because we love revolution. It is historically determined, and we have no alternative but to follow history and to use history for the benefit of our people.
Power to the people.